Why shut up?
Right. Well, I think we are at the 5:30 mark, yeah? I got another minute. But we'll go ahead and get started. What are we missing?
Have Commissioner Alford, yes.
Hello, Mr. Frank,
Hello.
how are you?
Hi.
Are we expecting, Catherine?
She said
Okay, great.
We
Well,
checked the waiting room.
she's usually pretty prompt, so I'm sure she'll be here. But
Digital clock say
the
1
thing is,
minute.
she doesn't have to be here for us to confirm her, so that's great. But I guess once we confirm them, how does that work? Because we have quorum right now. To confirm them, I guess we don't have any other decisions to make, so it doesn't matter. I was just like, and then once they're in, then we would not have quorum because we would have
Does it skip over this meeting?
6 members.
Confirm them as at the next meeting.
So we agree to have them, but don't confirm them until the next.
No, confirm them today, effective with the next meeting.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I don't think we have any other decisions
We
to
don't
make
need to
anyway,
vote.
but okay.
And then we would need 4 people to show up.
Okay, excellent. Well, I'm gonna call this meeting officially to order. It has roll call on here. I don't know if we need a full-on roll call, I think. So I'm gonna go on from that one. Does anybody have any comments or, additions to? Any public that wishes to speak to the agenda? I don't think there's anybody on Zoom or anything, but I just wanted. Okay, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Excellent, I have a motion and a second. We didn't have any comments, we don't have any public, so, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously, thank you. Right, we do have minutes, we have hard copies here, and I believe they were sent to you if anybody wants to review them. I don't know if anybody had any questions or comments on them, if not, I'll entertain a motion to approve minutes for both September 8th and October 13th.
Should entertain one?
I would love a motion.
I move the minutes.
Second. Excellent, we have a motion and a second. Any comments or any issues or changes? All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries with Commissioner Alford still absent. So we have our minutes done. All right. Is Dr. Campbell on the phone yet? No? Okay, I'm gonna, oh, is that her? One of them is? Is that Dr. Campbell or? Okay, great. Hello. Hello, Dr. Campbell, how are you? Just in time, can you hear us? Excellent, we've just, approved our minutes and approved the agenda, and we were just getting ready to confirm you. So I'm very excited, we have quorum today, and we're able to confirm you as a member. Would you like to say a little bit about yourself for those that weren't here last time, just like what your research is and what you do with IFAS?
Yes, give me 1 second to collect my thoughts. I wasn't ready to be on the hot seat so quickly.
Okay,
Yeah,
we can
so
switch it and move.
I can do it. I should be able to do this. My name is Catherine Campbell. I'm assistant professor of community food systems, and I've had the pleasure of working with many folks in the room there in person and on this Zoom call on all facets of community food systems. I work on areas related to food access and supporting small farm viability and consumer access to local foods, and am aiming to try to increase the sustainability ecologically, socially, and financially for our local farmers. And so I'm happy to be here.
Awesome, thank you for joining us. So, Catherine was nominated as the IFAS representative for our committee. We are still waiting, I think, on response from FAMU about their nominee. But we have reached out to them, and we hope that we will get a partner from FAMU as well to join us. And so, we'll keep you all posted at the next meeting on that. Yes,
To move to Dr. Campbell.
excellent. We have a motion. Do I hear a second? Second. Thank you. Excellent. Any comments or questions? I don't think we have any public here, so.
Effective for the December
Oh,
3rd.
effective our next
December
meeting.
3rd meeting, yes, that would be great. Excellent. Great. So your seconder okay with that addition? Absolutely, yes. Excellent. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries 3-0 with Commissioner Alford out. Excellent, you're officially part of us next meeting, Catherine, yay! All right, and we'll move to confirm Dr. Vilma Fuentes, and I'll let her share a little bit about her role again at, Santa Fe College, just in case anybody is watching that doesn't know you. Dr. Fuentes, do you mind sharing?
Good afternoon, everyone. So I have the pleasure of serving as Assistant Vice President for Academic Affairs at Santa Fe College, where I oversee baccalaureate programs as well as several key initiatives, internationalization, sustainability, and others. So I think my work most intersects with that part of my portfolio that involves sustainability. Here at the college, we've certainly been, various different stakeholders have been looking more and more about food accessibility, both among our student population, the community in general. We have been doing quite a lot of work to expand our existing food pantries, ensure that they also exist at our various educational centers, whether it be Rural Keystone and Stark, or the Blount Center, which, as you may have seen, we have a new building that's going up in downtown Gainesville. In addition to that, I've also been a part of a group that has recently proposed a major USDA grant to be able to connect our students and the work that we do, our students and our faculty and the work that we do in the classroom, to local food production. And with the intent of raising community awareness of what is best described as heritage foods. Some might also think of it as ethnic foods, right? So if you look at the patronage at our local farmers markets, it tends to be not as diverse as our community as a whole and as Florida in general. And our local food producers cater to that patronage. But, if we diversified our patronage, if we were able to perhaps increase awareness among local farmers about certain kinds of foods that might be quite suitable to the Florida climate. And if we create several multicultural events, maybe we can increase local food production. And of course, my hope is that I can connect all these dots and also bring more fresh fruit and vegetables and have them available on our campus for our students. So it's been fascinating joining your meetings lately, just learning about the various initiatives that you have in the city and county. And I'm hoping to, explore other areas where we can collaborate. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fuentes. Yeah, that grant's very exciting. I'm really looking forward to its impact on the community and working with you in lots of aspects, and Sarah as well on that project. So thank you all for your hard work to make that happen for our community and bringing those resources here.
And if I could, thank you for mentioning that USDA grant. It's really the brainchild of Dr. Sarah Cervone. She's a humanities professor on our campus, a real activist in the community, certainly among the farmers market community, among farmers. And I'm very much looking forward to see what new partnerships we explore in the future.
1 second, I'm letting somebody in.
Or a ghost.
That's unlocked now. Okay, excellent. Hello, sir.
So,
All right. Yes.
So I move the confirmation of Dr. Fuentes effective December meeting.
December 3rd, thank you. Do I have a second? Excellent, a second. Any comments or questions, any public comment on the agenda item? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Unanimous, with Commissioner Alford absent. Great, excellent. Well, we have done all of our business items for the evening. Lickety-split. Look at us, 5:39. But we do have some discussion items. We like to just quickly go through each of the initiatives that we're working on and get an update on any of them as relevant. And then we'll talk quickly about the upcoming meetings. And with that, I will turn it over to John. Why don't you go first with the update on the food shed map?
Chair, we tried to provide a link to the conversation. We've uploaded that to the county's YouTube channel. So a more detailed conversation on what's happening with the food shed, the community grocery store, the Good Food program is within that. So I'll just only briefly touch on where we're headed with these other items, except for the healthy corner store collaborative model, which I'll let Dr. Houchin take the lead on that. The food shed model, UFGO plan has finalized their portion of the work. They've done an amazing job with assembling the information. We've cross-checked a lot of the databases that were then populated into the map. So we're starting the conversation with a food shed map that has a diverse range of data spanning about a 15-county surrounding area. Amazing position to start from. We're collaborating with the University of Florida Economic Impact Analysis Program that has a similar scale project ongoing. So there's some data sharing between us, cross-checking. What we hope to work on over the next couple of months is the refinement of the user interface. We've got our first wave of data, useful data in it. Now we can begin to work on how people can push and pull and request information. Start to do that initial testing at the and that'll be the mobile option of being able to, I need to find food assistance there, to the I would like to do a comparative analysis of where we have this type of farm location on a map, and then ask other questions of it. We have the opportunity to help people at kind of the consumer end of the question, but also ask more relevant policy questions about all these data points that are in the map. So we are much further ahead of where we thought we could be. It will also have that added addition of information comes to life. It can populate itself. So we'll be farmers or other folks that have relevant information to self-populate information.
Oh, yeah, we had a great little demo of it last time, and once we get ready to launch maybe out into the user interface consumer side, we'll get another demo of it. Yeah, so you can see it. Yeah. Any questions about the food shed map? Excellent. All right, we want to quickly, maybe we'll do healthy corner store as the last thing, so we can get into the quicker items, and then, if that's okay with you.
For the community grocery store update, we had a brief recognition that in your blackout period, so there's not much new to report as of yet. At the December 3rd meeting, we'll have a better idea of where we're landing with the potential developer of the site, and we'll have some feedback from the city to let us know which direction we're heading with that project. The only update I have for that, because we really for the Good Food Purchasing Program, we're just beginning the process of analysis now. We sent a request to the Alachua County Jail's food provider, which is Paramedics Corporation, to provide us with relevant information for the first phase analysis. That'll take a couple of months, but it will come at a good time if we can get information and begin that work that the Alachua County School Board has already gone through. And the idea is that once you have the analysis, then you can say, okay, where would we like to be? What is important to us as a community? What kind of like in terms of next program? That will be the second phase. It'll probably take us another few months after we get the analysis back to lock that into place. But the most important part is figuring out where you are right now. And that's the questions that are being worked that we'll probably start to bring back to this board.
One quick note on that is that our jail's RFP for food will be going on the street here, which is why I really pushed for good food purchasing here, the analysis, so that we have good data, and then hopefully we can incorporate some of what we learned into our call for proposals, metrics, some of those things, or that we'd like improvement on, like, you know, pen to paper written.
I understand, the county commission puts out that RFP.
No,
The sheriff does.
The sheriff puts out that RFP. He agreed to participate in the good food purchasing program because it's the sheriff with the contract with us to run the jail. So it's our jail, it's the county's jail, but we have a contract with him to operate it. And so they currently put out the RFP. There are some things that we run the RFP for the jail, and some things that they do. Most of them are them. And so they currently do the RFP, but have agreed that they will work with us on the good food purchasing. So
you have some negotiation pull?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just to the point of when it's coming out, Commissioner Prizia, no, I know you said next year, but should we expect that at the beginning of the year?
The RFP?
Yes.
Summer.
I think it's June. Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it's like May or June is when the RFP is gonna go out. So my hope is, you know, we're doing this analysis now. Hopefully by this spring, we would have some good food purchasing. And we'd be able to have a discussion. We may even be able to invite the sheriff or their representative, their procurement representative here, you know, as we get closer to that discussion and we look at what we were getting back from CSTP.
Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions or comments on that one? Okay. Excellent. Plant of the month is onions this month. You can get your onion slips at the Feed and Seed store. They're very inexpensive, and I highly recommend you plant onions from slips because when you try them from seed, it takes forever. It's very difficult. So slips are available now, and there you get a big bundle of them, and really pretty easy to plant, and they're really fun to grow. So I'm sorry that Commissioner Alford can't be here to talk about that initiative more, but it's onions this month, and just in time we had collards, so you'd have them in time for Thanksgiving, and onions, so you can, you know, you'll have them in time for the spring. Awesome. All right, we're gonna healthy corner store initiative.
Dr. Hudson, would you like me to pull up the presentation, or would you like to share your screen?
I think I'm going to try to share my screen and see if that works for everybody. Just please let me know if that's big enough in the actual room. How is that? That's fine?
Yep, looks good.
Okay, great. So let me begin by saying that we went through this presentation in detail last meeting. I'll try not to bore those of us who were there. But I certainly want Commissioner Sacco and Commissioner Duncan Walker to hear it and to provide feedback, because that is really helpful to shape what we're going to be doing going forward. The second thing I'll say is that Mrs. Stone and Mrs. Raskin both have provided some slides as well on best practices that I believe they're going to share after we talk about the model. So I'm going to give you an overview of the general model that we'll be using, that we're proposing to create this Healthy Corner Store initiative. And Brandy and Carissa will come back behind me and say, these are do's and don'ts we've learned from other communities. Fair enough?
Sounds great.
So, great. So essentially, our goal is to create a model for collaboration, working with corner store owners, county, city staff, and potentially some citizen volunteers that will result in a pilot, a plan, and a process for us to do a Healthy Corner Store initiative that increases access to healthy options at local corner stores. So thought about what this collaboration model will look like. We are recommending that there are 2 to 3 corner store owners, that county staff and potentially city staff and volunteers are on this board. And at the end of this collaboration process, which will be 5 meetings long, that we come back to you with the recommendations for the Healthy Corner Store Initiative that are crafted by this collaboration model working group. We are suggesting 5 simple meetings, and at the end of this presentation, I'll talk with you about the timeline. But in the meetings, we would have already talked to a few corner stores, and I'll share the information we've already received and some pictures of corner stores that we visited in preparation for last month's meeting. So we will already have kind of a list of potentially interested corner store owners or important corner stores in particular communities. We'll recruit those 2 to 3 members, introduce this initiative and provide them with the background information. And by that background information, largely we'll be relying on the fabulous research that the city did that shares a number of models related to Healthy Corner Store initiatives. We'll start to have discussions about their concerns and needs, their incentives, priorities, and desires. And I keep plugging this idea at this moment, so I'm going to go ahead and plug it again. For example, a corner store owner might be interested in a beautification project to clean up their property and, you know, make it a lot more consumer friendly. And while that is useful for the corner store, it certainly doesn't necessarily add healthy food, but it does beautify our community. So that, you never know, that might be an important incentive and priority or a desire that a corner store has that we had not thought about with regard to strictly supporting the local food system and increasing access to healthy food. We'll talk about this pilot model, meaning, okay, after we meet together for these 5 times, collaborative working group, what would the model look like? How much is the model going to cost? How many corner stores should we open this to the first time? What equipment might be needed related to point of sale or other merchandise? And discuss what actual food options and cost benefits analysis would be a part of this project. Are we talking about persimmons because they're a local crop, or bullet grapes, or are we talking about something else? So and of course, talking through any kind of analysis and assessment, meaning getting feedback from consumers as well as feedback from consumers on items, so we know the consumer's desires, but also for all of our purposes, feedback on the relationship between food and health and this initiative. So we took a little tour of corner stores, and you know what you're looking at is the list of corner stores that we visited. Essentially, we went down 8th Avenue down to the Duval area. We came back up. We went down Waldo Road a little bit, and then went down Hawthorne Road. That's kind of the area that we took this tour on for our first visit. We'll be taking additional tours by the time we meet again, and I am also meeting with the county's Rural Advisory Committee to get their suggestions related to corner stores in rural areas that may not be on our radar or we may not have visited by tour. So the next couple of slides are images of some of those corner stores. Here is, for example, the corner store in the Duval neighborhood that is closest to Duval Elementary School. And I think the overriding comments I want to make on behalf of Sean and I about all of these corner stores was that corner stores are really essential part of these communities. They're frankly a joyful part of the communities one way or another. People traffic them. The people who go there know the corner store, and the corner, knows the owner and the community. They're important, and they're well used. Whether or not the offerings of the corner store are high quality or not, they are an important site. So, this corner store, within the 20 minutes that we were there were a number of consumers, including children, who were there buying things after school, etc. It was clearly a well-trafficked corner store. This series of pictures, so West Coast Seafood isn't exactly a corner store, but it is a store that's kind of in between supermarket and corner store that has incredible potential for local food. So we included these images and this picture because we just think that there's much potential to expand one side of the Healthy Corner Store initiative by partnering with a store like West Coast Seafood, as opposed and in addition to some of the smaller corner stores that you'll continue to see in these images. These are continued pictures of West Coast Seafood. Here we've got 3 different stores. One of them is Mr. Shark's, which is on Hawthorne Road. We've got the Circle K, and I don't remember the name of the store in the top left, but the store on the top left and Mr. Shark's are both local stores that offer, boiled peanuts, potentially pickles, so that, other culturally specific items like t-shirts or hats, etc. And I don't mean gator t-shirts, I mean white t-shirts that people in that community might wear, where there's space within the store to increase the amount of local products, definitely. And it's clear that the management is already doing that. They're meeting a particular need that this community has. Juxtapose those 2 stores with the Circle K on the bottom, which, is a national brand. And if you walk into Circle K, the amount of, while there is not local food there is definitely more healthy snacks and readily accessible food in the Circle K than those other 2 stores. So and it's in the same area, right? So we just wanted to share that to say, while we may not be working with Circle K, we'd like to see that our locally owned stores have the same kind of, if not more, variety and options that Circle K is offering. I'm going through this quick. I hope that's okay. And if you have questions, please, I'm looking forward to the dialogue. At the end of this presentation, we talked about these next steps, the necessity of a timeline, how much compensation would be provided for the working group members, and the budget for a pilot, which would be the first phase of this beyond the collaborative model, and then a larger project beyond that, which might get at something like West Coast Seafood. The 3, compensation for working group members, a budget, and a budget for a larger pilot, is still something that I believe the this joint board needs to consider, but we brought back to this meeting a potential timeline. So as I suggested, we're going to be visiting the Rural Advisory Committee and also hopefully hearing today from you all, the commissioners who are here and other members who are here today who weren't at our previous meeting, about corner stores that you might recommend we visit. And we'll continue to make those visits between November and January to recruit and identify corner stores. February, we will assemble this collaborative work group and start meetings. We propose to meet and finish those meetings by the end of May and provide this board with a final report of that model and those suggestions by June. That's it. Thank you for listening, and I'm looking forward to the discussion. And I think, I'm not sure if you'd like to talk about this and then move to the city's best practices, do's and don'ts presentation. I'll leave that up to the board.
I think it might be useful for, you all to see the do's and don'ts presentation before we chat, and then we can talk. I mean, I think that one gets more into the nitty gritty of what we're going to share with the participants in this participatory group to get feedback on, but I think it's useful. I think some of it we heard before, some of it, it'll be good just as a refresher, so you kind of get a sense of where we're going, and that'll help, might jog some other questions that you have for Deirdre. If that's okay. Carissa or Brandy, you want to take it away?
Certainly, we would be happy to. So hello, board members. My name is Chris Raskin, Civic Collaboration Supervisor for the City of Gainesville. And yes, Chair Perzia is correct. We are going to just go over actually only one of the 5 models that we shared with you all in a September presentation. We felt that this model that we're going to share tonight, which is actually from Miami Gardens, is the most relevant in terms of the scope of the project that we believe that the board is looking for, and the relevance of it being a Florida community is very helpful. And we've actually had the privilege of kind of listening in on their process over the last year. And so the insights gleaned are really, really beneficial. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen as long as Zoom cooperates with me. Bear with me one moment. Okay, and hopefully you can see that. And so again, this is just an excerpt from the presentation from September, and Brandy is actually going to go over a review of the Miami Gardens initiative, and then I'll follow up with kind of the questions based on that model of where we see we might want to go, certainly within the scope of what Dr. Houchin just presented. So Brandy, go for it, and I will do the slide advancing for you.
Great, thank you. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Brandy Stone. I am the Civic Collaboration Specialist with the city, working with Carissa. And like she mentioned, the model that we'll highlight this evening is in Miami Gardens, Florida. So this model is currently running, and it is quite unique, we believe, based on the review of the other models. So this corner store initiative is a component of the Live Healthy Miami Gardens initiative, which is from the city's strategic effort to reduce poor health outcomes of its residents. This initiative ultimately is supported by the Healthy Retail Working Group with a volunteer advisory board that contributes insights to the city. Live Healthy Miami Gardens was awarded a REACH grant from the CDC, and as a result of that award, Florida Impact to End Hunger joined the REACH program as a subcontractor to facilitate the implementation of the program. And ultimately, this Healthy Corner Store program works to shift marketing and store item layouts and locations to focus on healthy choices for consumers. In order to identify the needs that the community had, they conducted a survey to kind of start out, which is the Nutrition Environment Measurement Survey, or NEMS. And this was done first with corner store retailers, non-restaurant retailers, and a second version was actually done with perceptions for consumers and shoppers and community members. So this survey and these findings were ultimately used to establish a baseline of information to assess the healthy food access and need across the city. Chris, if you want to, thank you. So in December of 2020, the Miami Gardens City Council passed the Miami Gardens Healthy Corner Store certification policy, which helped to establish, the sustainability of this program. Within that policy, it creates a tiered certification system for qualified stores, and stores must apply to participate in the program, and that application goes through the subcommittee for final review. So when applying, the stores can indicate which level of certification they wish to establish within the program. Platinum has the highest number of requirements, followed by gold and then silver. These requirements that store owners are looking at in order to select really focus on the type of items that are being stocked, the educational information available, any marketing materials, discount programs, refrigeration units, and among other things. So it really does allow the store owner to kind of choose the experience that their store can have. The higher the tier, the greater the incentives for the program for the participating retailer. So some examples of the incentives that are offered include advertising, public recognition, expedited city licenses for businesses, graffiti removal, and an educational toolkit. The certification is ultimately valid for 1 year and is eligible for renewal based on a site visit and an evaluation by the subcommittee. So as you all can see, this program is really well developed. It does empower the store owner to make the decision for what's best for their store as well. And it is kind of grounded in that survey findings as to what is the need of the city and the consumers there. So I will turn it over to Carissa to share a little bit more.
Thank you, Brandy. So we, again, selected that model to share with you because it kind of gives a robust look at how we might want to move forward even with the engagement process that Dr. Houchin had framed, and just having a framework for how this has worked well in another community, and maybe some of the questions and the framing of the conversation with the store owners that we would want to participate with. Also, one unique thing about the Miami Gardens model is because they are working under the REACH grant, which is through the CDC, they've been able to contract with a GIS specialist, and they're developing something similar to our food shed map, specifically though around the Healthy Corner Store initiative. And so it creates a good pairing for the work that they're doing down there, aligned with some of the multiple projects that we're working with up here. And one other great thing about Miami Gardens is they are taking the advisory council that was convened for the Healthy Corner Store initiative and expanding upon the goals that they've set. And I don't know if this would be a goal in the future for this board, but if it were to be, we'd have an example, and that goal being they're implementing a healthy checkout lane policy in Miami Gardens as well. And so they're able to leverage the board that they've already convened around best practices and how to kind of roll out that type of initiative. And so while that may not be something that our community wants to do, if there was an initiative or an interest in doing it, we'd already have the relationship with folks who have, tried and practiced and kind of learned what works and what doesn't work. So all of that to be said, there are a couple of different questions, and I think Dr. Houchin already started to frame some of these in her presentation. And so kind of just to reiterate, less so on the left-hand side of the screen, which is talking more about ordinance, which certainly if that is the direction the commission wishes to go, we can navigate that process and staff will work accordingly. But I believe that we're looking at more a voluntary and incentive-based type program. And so some of the questions will simply be, what is the scope? How are we looking at starting with a certain number of stores, and what is the scale of incentive that we're looking at offering? And for those incentives beyond the dollars that would be budgeted for things like signage and marketing, if there is a nutrition education component, I would expect that would likely be through partnership with other entities. And certainly I would be more than happy to help facilitate some of those partnerships, as we have a number of very interested students and programs at the university who have kind of begged to be a part of initiatives like this. So I don't think we'll have trouble finding help. But also looking at, in Miami Gardens had started in their model to coordinate cooperative buying for the stores, and that has proven very challenging. But it also adds a layer of local food sourcing to the initiative. And so if that were a primary goal of what the board wants to see out of this, we would need to put a little bit more resources into making sure that we have the capacity to be able to run that type of program. Are we putting a threshold on the amount of healthier options stocked? And if we are we providing any initial stocking of those items to get the program up and running with the store. Best practices from some case models would say that if you initially help a store by providing the healthier food options for the first X number of months, it's challenging to keep those stores continuing that behavior because they hadn't really figured out how to do it on their own yet. And once that incentive no longer is there, it's very difficult to continue with the process. So just things for us to be thinking about. And then of course, infrastructure, refrigeration, shelving, and really the question does come down to funding. So just looking for a little bit of guidance from the board as terms of scale, scope, and if this is going to be a more phased approach. But we welcome any and all feedback and are happy to work at the will of the board. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen and welcome all discussion. So thank you for the time.
Thanks, Carissa. And I do want to say, I hope that we will take, I definitely want to hear everyone's comments, but I hope that we'll take a lot of the questions that you asked and that those will be pointed at the store owners themselves, and that conversation about what incentives are wanted and needed, what is the scope that people want to go at, how do they see those incentives being implemented, maybe not framed exactly the same way, but those same kinds of questions put to, our store owners and the community members themselves as well as us, so that we have a robust, level of feedback. We could come up with all kinds of great ideas here in our vacuum, and then the store owners could laugh us out of the room when we get to their door and start asking them to implement them. Is that Commissioner Sacco?
Thank you. And I agree, getting that feedback will be important. It's the second time I've seen Carissa and Brandy this week, but I will say that one thing that I definitely think should be a funded incentive is that infrastructure. At Zero Waste yesterday afternoon, we found out that, any food pantry or food assistance program, what they need is refrigeration. What they need is the infrastructure to just hold stuff.
Absolutely.
So I'd be more than happy to figure out that one. And I will admit, I don't know the cost of a commercial fridge, but I can't imagine, you're not running the meat section of Walmart. It would be, a corner of the shop. So I can't imagine it would be cost prohibitive for us to fund a couple of those as an incentive.
I think you're absolutely right. We've seen, she didn't mention it, but the healthy corner store initiative in Oakland and in LA is a similar model to the Miami Gardens model. They don't have a tiered program, but they do essentially have a light, medium, and heavy. So it's very similar. And the light touch is sort of just that educational, maybe some marketing materials, maybe some helping with cleaning the store. Their middle level is more infrastructure investments, and maybe they buy them a cooler or some shelving and some display baskets, and maybe they do some training, business training around inventory management, things like that. And then the heavier level is like maybe a full store facade overhaul, like what Dr. Houchin talked about, along with purchasing some supplies and materials that are going to be necessary, as well as layering the other pieces on it. So it's a very similar model, I think. And one of the things they noticed is kind of what you were talking about, is that infrastructure tended to be one of the barriers, but it was also one of the barriers because of space. Because a lot of these places are really small and they already have their wall of coolers, and that wall of coolers is full of sodas and beverages, pretty much, mostly in beer. And so, trying to prioritize what products are they going to potentially scale back in order to scale up these other products can be a really challenging conversation. And so I think that that'll be something that they probably have to delve into in one of these 5 meetings, is sort of, how much product gets put out, is there space in what they have, if not, floor space for additional storage, things like that is definitely going to be an issue.
And I think I should have started with that one. I do think the incentive base might be best. As they stated, corner stores are kind of vital as a food resource.
Absolutely.
And if we go ordinance based and we're like, okay, I'll just close up.
Yeah, no way.
We don't want to shut down the only access to food.
Agreed.
So I'd much rather try the incentive base. And if possible, is there a way to get a list of some of the Miami Garden stores that are in the program? Because it's like 15 minutes from my parents' house, and I could just go down in 2 weeks and kind of see what it looks like in person when it's done. But yeah, I think
I was just going to share that, yes, we can certainly get that list for you. And I am confident that if we were interested in having a presentation too by the folks working through Florida Impact and Hunger down there, that would be a very easy ask for them to give a presentation if you're interested in learning any more of their model.
Right, Dr. I almost called you, I almost called you Dr. Duncan Walker.
Without the student loans.
Commissioner.
Oh,
Duncan
I'll take it
Walker.
without the student loans, absolutely. So I'd like to thank everybody for the work that they have done on this. This is a very, very exciting initiative. I want to ask a question, and I believe Dr. Houchin and whoever accompanied her on the tour would be able to help with this initial question. When we took the tour of the, 8 different locations, have we begun conversations just to kind of get an idea of what owners might think of this initiative? If so, can you just kind of give me a little bit of an idea? Because I have some thoughts and some ideas and some concerns about historic corner stores. So I'm just very curious to begin with what the response has been to
Sure.
just our initial visits.
In almost every store that we went into, we did a very brief introduction. Hi, we work for the county and we're just here because we're interested in a healthy corner store model. Is it okay if we take some pictures and talk with you? Something to that extent. Everyone was amenable and willing to have us on the property and take pictures, etc. Most people had no idea what we were talking about. One store, the gentleman was brilliant and clever and said, "You work for the county, why aren't you in masks?" It was the day that the mask ordinance was revoked. And I was like, it just got revoked 6 hours ago. So, but I appreciated his attention to recognizing who we work for and what we do. So that's a level of interest in my estimation. One corner store, and Mr. McClendon, you can correct me if I'm incorrect, but one corner store owner actually followed up by email to ask a few more questions and find out what this initiative was. So I would gauge the initial interest as friendly and willing, if I were to characterize it across all the stores that we talked with.
Okay, thank you for that. So by virtue of where I have lived, both being raised in Gainesville, by virtue of where I have lived when I lived down in Miami, not too far from Miami Gardens, and in some other places, and having seen how community stores can operate, I'd like to mention a couple of things. Because on its face, this initiative, I believe, is amazing and very well intentioned. I will say that historically, corner stores have been very problematic in many of the communities, particularly in Black communities. Okay, let's get down to some brass tacks in here tonight. They've been somewhat problematic for a number of reasons, and profitable to the business owners who own and operate them. And some of the reasons that they are profitable to the business owners who own and operate them might be the same reasons why they may kind of shirk this thing when we really want to roll it out. One of the things that's disheartening when I walk into a corner store is, obviously, you've got the wide array of everything that is, but you also have the things that are outdated and that have been on the shelves way too long, to the point where some of them are just flat out dusty. Okay, I'm saying all this, of course, not to say that every store owner does this, but I'm giving us a sliver of an issue. And so with that, I would say, I'm interested in what building relationships some of these business owners might be, and I mean real relationships. Because many of them have been in our communities for a very, very, very long time, have a very, very deep and long reach, and frankly, they don't intend to go anywhere.
we're talking about not just an issue of health regarding food, but we're talking about an issue in terms of health regarding safety. That is some of the violence that has existed around corner stores. That is pedestrian safety issues that exist. One of the corner stores that you had,
I know,
Your list,
that's where that little girl was
Dr.
hit.
Yeah, Dr. Houchin, I have tried to do something in front of the store with regards to pedestrian safety. Okay, so I know I'm kind of commingling issues, but I want us to take kind of a comprehensive approach if we're willing, if this committee is willing. Yes, let's definitely focus on food, but let's think about what we're doing, because if we do this right, we engage owners in putting healthier options into the store, and we begin to attract people to healthy options, I don't want to be attracting them to the violence or the pedestrian safety issues. So I'd like for us to start thinking about what corner stores have historically been in the communities outside of just places where we don't have enough healthy access to food. Unfortunately, we don't have enough healthy access to things around corner stores. So I'm really interested in what these conversations with owners will be. I think developing meaningful relationships somehow. Staff, I have no idea what that looks like now, but I would certainly ask for you to think of some things, some ways that we can pull community into that idea, because it is a quick way for a lot of people. I'm thinking of one store in particular where there are several houses, there is an apartment complex across the street, so mothers and children, families cross the street to the corner store, where they pretty much get everything. And Walmart's not far, it's just at the corner store. It's the quickest thing. You don't need a car, you cross the street and you get there. But that is also the corner store. There have been a few lives lost in the last year. So,
Well, and I think you bring a really good point up, and I think that one of the things that I love the idea of a comprehensive approach, and I hope, I guess I echo what you say, and I hope that when we're having those conversations and as we're building those relationships, one of the things that we bring up, Dr. Houchin mentioned the facade grants, but these other issues, what are the issues that face your store, in terms of access, in terms of safety, for them. But I do think that as we expand the conversation to community to understand what sort of items community members would like to see in those stores that they don't have, and we start having conversations about how do they feel about those spaces, because there are some situations where while people rely on those stores and have for many years, they also have a little bit of an adversarial relationship with the store owners. The store owners split packs of things and sell individuals that cost more.
sure.
They, there's violence outside the stores, but they don't get rid of those people because those people buy a lot of the beer that's inside the store. There's
EBT
these
cards
things.
being used to purchase things that they shouldn't be used.
Right.
So I think as we start looking at how we engage these stores, there are a few different things that we look at. And part of that also gets back to the idea that the city nor the county want to be supportive of entities that are not doing the right thing.
We don't, but I also think we have to realize that change comes slow and it comes with relationship building. And if we can
Oh, for
build
sure.
a relationship on one thing, then I think we can we open a door to other options. and
But we must be
conversations.
intentional.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So I like the idea of
Yeah.
us coming together or coalescing around this idea of whatever this comprehensive thing is, how it looks, maybe it's a phased out approach, whatever it is, but that we be very, very intentional in identifying how we go about building those relationships, because I'm definitely for that. The corner stores aren't going anywhere. They've been there for a long, long time, and, if we can find ways to truly make them healthy, I'm all on board with that.
I do think it was it was on the slide, I think, of our options versus ordinance versus incentive. It's adjacent to your point. It was about liquor stores, and I recall Commissioner Ariola, and Commissioner Johnson both really honing in on this. There is a strategy, I would say kind of heinous strategy of putting liquor stores in low income or minority neighborhoods, which again lead to some of those issues that you've brought up on safety. So I don't know if there's, because I think you put it up as one of the options of if you sell alcohol, if you're a liquor store, you have to have some kind of healthy food components by ordinance, and I'm not sure what that would look like, because I think it'd be kind of odd to walk in and like, here's produce and here's booze. But I'd be interested in seeing what any of the ordinances related to alcohol look like. I don't mind using a stick in that area, to figure out how to, I guess, how to curb that impact on the community, with just, all I sell is alcohol, like, that's it, maybe some soda.
I
And I
will
think
tell
that's
you
what-
that in the Healthy Corner Store Initiative in LA that I mentioned, they considered liquor stores as corner stores in their corner store initiative, and they targeted liquor stores. And one of their most transformative projects was actually a liquor store that they convinced to carry food products, and they did a complete store transformation from being a liquor store to being a corner store, and they helped them move in, product. And at first they were really nervous, the store owners, because they were losing inventory, and they make all their money on liquor, and they thought, really gonna cut into my profit. But it didn't, and in fact, it actually increased their profits quite a bit, because what happened was, while their liquor clients came in and bought like a bottle of liquor every now and then, or, bought their 6-pack of beer and left, the corner stores, the folks that were coming from the corner store were coming much more regularly, coming for their milk every day, coming for their eggs and their bread or whatever. Like, they had many more return customers, regular customers, and the customers that were coming in for beer then also bought their milk and their eggs and their, so they ended up having spillover from their liquor clients, but they built a whole new set of customers with the corner store component, and they created more, I guess, balance across their balance sheets. They had less like profit and less like fluxes, like big on the weekends and low during the week kind of things. They had more stable income. So it was an interesting, it was one case study in one place, so it's not, it's not like you could say that that's going to translate everywhere.
It was relationship based though.
But it was
building that
relationship-based, it was
relationship.
not
So
ordinance-based,
if we
yeah.
can explore those kinds of case studies, but then also, as we build these relationships with the stores, look at liquor stores that are willing to kind of engage in theory of going in this direction. I think that's the best use that we could put there, because I envision this board not just on food, but like the nutrition of the community. That's part of it. If you just surround a community with liquor stores and not food, you're trying to kill the community. As someone who's like childhood home was surrounded by small liquor stores, like, that's a problem. So that's one thing I'd be interested in exploring further as our meetings go on, if the board sees it fit. No one's yelling at me, so I think that means yes.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad idea. I think are you asking that it be explored as part of the Healthy Corner Store initiative, or that we look at that separate from?
I would say separate, because
Okay.
I'd rather the initiative here be that incentive-based one because I think we can turn around much faster on that.
Yes.
And we seem to have kind of a blueprint of how to do that one. But I do think that one can be explored as a separate item, because it's.
So we have asked for an upcoming meeting in the spring sometime, or late winter, early spring sometime, to be about codes and sort of ways in which we could offer more mobile vending or mobile food vending, about the urban agriculture ordinance that the law school students, in fact, Dr. Hofstrom was around the law school, I think, at that time when I was working with Candace and Goliath on the urban ag ordinance, which you now, I think, have passed through your board and is working in legal review right now. So that'll come forward for us to look at how that might be explored at the county level, and then other things within your codes and our codes that might be updated or expanded. So when we do that, maybe we could look at what our liquor store policies are now, and if there are examples, I don't know if it might be more of a city issue than it is although there are rural areas where there's nothing but a liquor store, too. But if there are examples of ordinances that you all know of, since that was on your list there, maybe those could be brought forward at that time.
Okay. Can I also add, so, to the relationship building piece, but also to the education component. Once again, I'm back to the idea of the community that these stores are largely in. And for me, I am really desirous of owners understanding how they're making their money and who they're making it off of. And so since this is a community that they're benefiting financially from, for them to understand what the unhealthy products that they're selling in their communities is doing to the surrounding community, for me, is very, very important. So what I'd like to see is some sort of, I don't know whether it is a brochure, a leaflet, a pamphlet, this idea of, here is this community we're in the middle of. It's largely this group of people who are prone to heart attack, stroke, blah, blah, blah. And we phrase it in the appropriate ways, obviously. And I mean, obviously, we don't say the food that you're pushing in this store, selling in this store is killing people, but we do in a very diplomatic way.
Right.
It is an educational, yeah. So the data is compiled, and that is not just for the owner, but it is also for the people who go into the store. And hopefully that would help to incentivize individuals to, instead of going back to, I don't know, the Dippity Doodles, they stop and they get an apple instead. But it definitely is for the owners. I think you probably hear, I'm kind of really big on this, because for me, having watched this for generations and seeing the healthcare disparities and understanding how these stores can sometimes contribute to it, for me, this type of initiative is so potentially useful that I really want to be able to strike the balance for them to receive this. I think the dance could possibly, it'd be great if they would just latch onto it like places out in LA and Miami. But in the event that there is some sort of pushback because they make a large portion of their money off of everything that is unhealthy, I just want to find ways that they can be educated, relationships get built, and I just want to make sure we're very, very intentional. So I guess what I am asking for is that leaflet as the beginning of my request. Okay, staff?
I'm not
Thank you.
sure who you're referring to with staff, but I have some
Anyone.
comments, if I may.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Dr. Houchin has her hand up, and then I wanted to open it up to the folks on the phone. And I just also wanted to say, if Carissa or whoever it is, I just want to ask if you could please refrain from using the comment box, because we in the meeting cannot see that. So you might be trying to say something to everyone, but we can't see that. So unless you're just chatting to Sean about something logistical, it would be great if you could state what you're trying to say out loud and I will try to, I promise I'll try to get to you, but I just, if you could read it, because we can't read it. So, okay, Dr. Houchin, and then Kathleen Pagan.
It seems to me as though it might be important to come back before this board with a more detailed description of the goals of the collaborative process. That working group that has to do with some of the things Commissioner Duncan Walker just mentioned in terms of data analysis related to consumer health and corner stores and generally in low-income communities, as well as kind of setting a tone that's honest and truthful, but also provides some opening for collaboration and, you know, meeting somebody's capitalistic goals and dreams. In other words, how can we make this work, but it cannot continue to be so unhealthy for the communities that you're situated in. That's what I really heard. And that's what I'd like to do, is bring back some more details about how I and how those of us who are working on this model would plan on crafting an environment over the course of 5 meetings that results in meaningful engagement, and defining what meaningful engagement is and kind of what those qualities need to be to get there. Second, I definitely would like to have a follow-up meeting with any of the commissioners, but certainly get more information about some of what you know is occurring in these corner stores that are negative, so that we're walking into those meetings fueled with that information and not making assumptions. That's all I have.
Can do. Thank you, Dr. Houghton.
Absolutely. And Kathleen Padan? Ooh, you got us on Zoom over there, your feedback.
Good evening. I just wanted to mention a few thoughts regarding the crime issue. It seems like engaging with GPD, they of course know probably a lot about certain locations, but also there's something called crime prevention through environmental design. And I know that they work with that approach. But also in terms of the health impacts, I remember that it was probably a decade ago, Dr. Carolyn Tucker at UF had a program in many churches. She was working in the faith community, providing education. But her research team at UF, I think, may have information. It may need to be simplified in some respects, but they're a great resource, and we could turn to her expertise on ways to try to convince the store owners of the health impacts. In some cases, the store owners themselves may be having health impacts as well. And so, you know, I know we can't extend this focus. We need to focus on the issue of the store environment, the food environment, but it is all connected. And Carissa had mentioned in the chat about Dr. Bruce Waite, so I'll let her elaborate about his work.
We have a hand up with Dr. Fuentes, and then we'll go to Carissa. She has some things she wanted to say. And Dr. Fuentes? Thank you, Kathleen. Those are great suggestions.
So my comments or questions really are kind of brief, and I'm not sure if it's properly placed given the nature of the conversation, but if we are to engage more community groups to try to come up with a holistic solution to not just the need for fresh food, but also safety, if you will. So health, safety and such. Might it be worthwhile to engage some faith-based groups in these communities? It might be a nice safe space, if you will, where community members can come and feel comfortable talking about some of the community needs and then perhaps proposing solutions. Just a thought. I'm not sure how the city or the county, what the city of the county thinks about that. But earlier on during the presentation, Carissa specifically mentioned the REACH grant from the CDC on a couple of occasions, and also mentioned the Nutrition Environment Measurement Survey. So I was sitting here kind of looking these up. Look fascinating. I'm not sure if the REACH grants are still available. It would be ideal. I mean, since it did significantly support the Corner Stores initiative in Miami Gardens, it would be ideal if some sort of a funding source like that were still available here. But if not, in terms of gathering baseline data about fresh foods in an area, were you all thinking of using something like the Nutrition Environment Measurement Survey, or did you have some other tool in mind? Just curious.
I don't think we've decided on a tool yet. I think that the data around health that paints a picture of health for the community is important to bring to corner store owners. But tools, I was hoping to co-design and co-select with them so that we would have that buy-in as well as shared ownership of the data itself.
So does that answer your question, Dr. Fuentes? Okay, great.
Yes,
And regarding the faith communities, I'll quickly say, I think at least on the county side, I know we are very open to working with the faith community. In fact, during COVID, they were a critical part of our strategy for getting vaccines out into the communities. And I see our faith community as critical to any conversation about community and how we work together. And so I think as we expand past the corner store and sort of this smaller working group that sort of starts to flesh out ideas and move into sort of the communities, this sort of tool to get information and data from the community, I see those faith-based communities as critical partners. I won't speak for the city, but I'm sure that they probably feel similarly.
We're nodding.
Excellent. Carissa, and then Dr. Campbell. And then I'll open it up for the audience. We do actually have one community member here who I think would like to give some public comment, and I do want to be mindful of time. So Dr. Campbell, Carissa, and then Dr. Campbell.
Thank you, Commissioner. So to go back on a couple of points, so I apologize for putting things into the chat. I didn't realize that you couldn't see it, so I will refrain from doing so, but thank you to others who have mentioned a few things that were put in there. So just Dr. Bruce Waite, as many of us know Dr. Bruce Waite, and has done incredible work in the area, and actually has a relationship with an organization that does Healthy Corner Store and healthy food promotion and a variety of different projects. He has a great deal of data. He typically utilizes or has been utilizing the Health Deprivation Index model, which is an advancement of USDA's food desert mapping and kind of overlays information related to health disparities. And he's just a wealth of knowledge and a resource who would be more than happy to share information with us. I actually have a map of the Health Deprivation Index of Alachua County that we can look at just for future information for this particular initiative and others. But if there were to respond to Commissioner Duncan Walker's request for pamphlet and information specific to community contexts, he might be an excellent resource with subject matter expertise to assist us. So that was one point. And then Dr. Fuentes, you had mentioned the idea of reaching out to the community members to see what solutions they may see for some of these problems that more globally we're talking about related to food access, but also social initiatives. And I just once again want to put a plug in for the amazing, beyond amazing work that Grace Grows is doing in Southeast Gainesville and the community-driven, assets-based approach, community participatory model for developing a food access and food sovereignty plan. We're nearing the end of our data. Well, we're nearing the end of the first phase of our data collection process and have gotten a lot of amazing solutions and ideas from community members and really beginning to start into the, okay, well, these are the ideas. How do we hone that in and create a plan for the community? Brandy and I have been intimately engaged in that process, and it may behoove us to look at some of that data and the engagement there and really supporting the work that the community has not only asked for, but has given their ideas for how it could be possible. And I've said, I would like to be a part of the solution. And so I don't know how, I don't have a 100% clear picture as to how that relates to the Healthy Corner Store initiative, but inevitably these are individuals who shop at the corner stores as well. And so certainly their perspectives would be very helpful. And part of the survey questionnaire that was asked to individuals, and we have over 100 of them, I believe we're nearing close to 120, and information was asked about where do you shop most frequently, why, what are the barriers to shopping there, and why do you do it? And so I think that information, while some of it was geared more towards grocery store, certainly dollar stores and other type convenience stores were mentioned, and the insights gleaned from that might help us to position the conversation with some of our store owners around data that says, listen, we know that these are the things that individuals value. We know that these are the reasons why they show up to shop, and helping to qualm any concerns about loss of people coming to shop at their locations. So anyway, I just wanted to offer that as a really valuable resource.
To that end, I guess, it might be interesting, and I don't know what other members think if it's worth forward, but if they are, I don't know where they are in their process, but if they're able to come to this group to give a presentation about the overall outcomes, I think it could help a number of initiatives that we plan to work on in the future. So that's one thing I would love to see them come to a future meeting and present on their results. But also, perhaps perhaps if Dr. Houchin's working on the group and they have some ideas from the data that they collected about corner stores, you know, a conversation with them about what corner stores rose out of the conversations or anything that came out of that participatory model, that would be helpful, so we don't reinvent the wheel. I mean, what I don't want to do, and what Dr. Fuentes I'm worried about and concerned about with the conversation about tools and surveys, is the fact that people are constantly being surveyed and asked questions, and we're constantly putting tools out in the community to ask people questions, and then nobody ever knows what happens to those. And so if we can use tools that have already been done, like this one, to get to the answers that we need with regards to a lot of what we want to do, rather than having to do it again, I think that's also really important. So I would just ask that as Deirdre and Sean and Carissa and Brandy are talking about this and fleshing it out, you know, my hope would be that we would look to what's already out there, what already exists, what data is available to us, before we think about tools. Dr. Campbell and then Dr. Houchin, unless Dr. Houchin, you wanted to respond directly to Carissa?
I didn't. I just had one quick comment.
Okay, Dr. Campbell?
Yeah, this is, I think, maybe a good follow-on to what you were just saying, Anna. And in the essence of time, I'll be quick. But I had mentioned the NEMS survey in our last meeting, and there is one specifically designed for corner stores, and there's also a short form of it. And the burden would be on potentially staff or whomever. Like, I could see if I could get an intern that could do the NEMS survey for me, but it's really just that would be on our end of just going in a store and checking off what's there and what's not, and not putting a burden on the store owners or the community. And it's a validated tool that's used all over the United States and allows for apples to apples comparisons. And I think it's a sort of thing that potentially could be used in conjunction with the things that Dr. Houchin was mentioning, potentially as a complement to it. So that's all.
Thank you. And I appreciate Dr. Houchin's comment of getting buy-in for going into their stores and doing that tool. So there's that trust built, is a good idea. And I do feel like either Dr. Shelnut or Dr. Matthews oversaw a graduate student that did some of that work and did they use that tool? I'm not sure when they were doing looking at smoking cessation or something. No, they did not.
They actually used I believe it's the CRX or CX3 survey. There was a debate as to whether they were going to use NEMS or the other model, but they did use that about, I think it was 2016, and they had confirmed with 2 stores that were really excited about participating in the initiative. Unfortunately, funding shifted and they weren't able to go forth with the implementation, but they had gotten it to the point where the feasibility was done, the environmental study was done, and they were about ready to start, but then the funding for the infrastructure just fell through.
So those stores would have yet other stores that are worth connecting with, I would say. Dr. Houchin?
My quick comment was just to say that as we're talking about liquor and alcohol dependence in low-income communities, I just wanted to make sure that we don't lose sight of the fact that alcohol dependence is often a response to an inability to buy prescription drugs that are very expensive, as well as underlying mental health issues. So any solution that we, ordinance or anything that we do that decreases the amount or is kind of prohibitory regarding alcohol dependence, I hope that we support the community by providing some options for the underlying issues that cause the alcohol dependence.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
So Dr. Houchin, one of the things that the city's CRP program is working on is addiction issues, including alcohol dependence. So they are, and I think we provided funding for them in their scale up for the next couple of years to be able to hire the staff to be able to do that outreach and that case management and assistance, as well as other health issues assigned. But they, from my ride along with them, a bulk of the work is on this southeast side that we're talking about with these corner stores, if that's where we're going to start. So I hear you. It's a thing. I don't want us, to pull one stick out of the tower and the rest of it collapse. I want us to take holistic approaches to what we're doing while we're here. But I hear you.
Yeah,
Thank
and I'll
you.
just, to those who may not know, CRP stands for Community Resource Paramedics Program, and that's the sort of the outreach arm of their paramedics that are doing more community health initiatives. And we have a parallel in the county, and I really hope that they will work together and that we'll see more collaboration. I know that there's always been some good collaboration and also some tension between our fire rescue departments, but I think that they both have really great initiatives and they're working on complementary things, and they do a really good job of referring clients to each other. And ours is just getting started, and yours is a lot more mature, and so I think we can learn a lot from the city's therapy program with regards to things like mental health and wellness. So thank you. Okay, any other questions or comments from the board or the staff team? No? Okay, with that, I would love to open it up for our public to provide us with any comments or questions.
Can I talk?
You can talk, go right over, you can come up here, yeah.
Okay, I'll hang this up. Don't y'all dare build that wheel. CRA has been spinning that wheel since its beginning. Facade grants, just pull in CRA on any facade stuff you want to help anybody. Okay, and I also want to urge the city, I think it behooves the city to check on a property at the corner of Southeast 7th Avenue and Southeast 8th Street. On the northeast corner of that intersection is a cinder block building with a little parking lot that was a corner store maybe as recent as 15 years ago. It's just been sitting ever since. And I think that you should bring this thing in phases. And as far as information and trying to reorient it, the grocers themselves, a pamphlet is not going to get it. This is going to have to be personal. And you have two great pools of labor you could use. There's two nursing programs. And you could use Dr. Tucker to orient groups of nursing student volunteers. They could do it as their community service project in their programs to go to grocers and talk to them. You need people to talk to them, not a pamphlet on the health issues about this. And I think the program would work best in 3 phases, with the ordinance idea being the last and possibly a phase you can skip if the first 2 work. So the first one would be those who are immediately willing, obviously, with a mind also to geographic distribution. But I assume that you really prefer to bring in food from local producers and into availability to community folks. So the stores that will do that, that are anxious to do that, would be your first phase, and let those who are less willing see that working and succeeding and changing and diversifying the economic base for those that are doing it. Your second phase would be a slight more nudge to the ones who've been unwilling by bringing some of those farmers who come to the farmers markets to the nearest piece of open pavement near those stores and let them do open air sales. Those people will want to bring that inside the building once they see it running. And in your third phase, hopefully it would be unnecessary by then, could be to go to ordinance. As far as the alcohol piece, I think that having healthy food available is going to help some with the alcohol too. As you say, some targeted programs about the problems, the reasons for alcohol dependence are necessary, but alcoholics are often lacking in their nutrition, and good nutrition is part of their turnaround too. So to have the food, the good food available, to have quality calories available, and the facade improvements are going to be a subtle way for you to mark the stores that are no longer just potato chip depots and have high quality calories.
Thank you, Mr. Blunt. I think that was our only community comment. The only other thing that I think I wanted to quickly touch on with our 5 minutes left is the budget. I know that we have some budget at the county to get us started with this initiative. but I want to quickly just talk about the idea. I think it's really important to compensate the store owners and any other professionals that are taking their time out of their day to participate in this process, in this group, to guide the city. They're essentially acting as consultants and providing their expertise and their experience. And so I'd like to be able to offer some form of compensation. I don't have a specific structure for that, but I know that Dr. Houchin's been thinking about that broadly for this county. And so I just want to at least get some consensus that everyone is on board with that concept, and that if there are additional resources needed as they move forward with that idea, I guess they could bring it back to us in the December meeting. But I think we have what we need, but I just want to put that out there.
So we have a similar structure in place. I want to say it's under GPD, for not our interrupters, but something similar to it, where they do kind of have those meetings, go into the community, get feedback, kind of compile it and give it back to us as consultants. So we have some kind of structure. Somewhere in the manager's office, they figured it out. But yeah, no, you're right. It's going to be, half a year probably of work or less, but consistent, not an insignificant number of hours. And I agree, they should be compensated for giving us that feedback, doing that legwork. So I'm fine with it, and I imagine it won't be cost prohibitive.
Yeah.
It won't break either budget.
Is everyone else general agreement with that? Need a motion as long as we have a general sort of consensus that that's the process of going forward.
I have one question. Does staff need anything else from us? I know you had questions at the end of kind of the directions to go and our timeline and everything else. Did our conversation answer all of those?
Yes, and pose new ones. My recommendation would be that either at the December meeting, if that's possible, it may have to be January, that we come back to you with a far more detailed proposal and some data, having talked to Dr. Tucker, and really be prepared to launch this the following month, which would require some meetings between us and those who work at the city to occur between now and that meeting. So if that works for everybody, that's what I would suggest we do.
I'm okay with that. I guess my concern is that we don't put the ball down the road too far in trying to, I want to make sure we have a really good process and that the process is solid. What I don't want to do is, it's because we only meet monthly, it's like every time we have to add something, we add another month. And so,
Don't let perfect be the enemy of good.
Right, exactly. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of good. And I think also just like acknowledgement that like in December, then January, we have the holidays in between. So there's not a lot, Dr. Houchin and the team won't have a lot of time to do a lot of this work in the interim. So I just want to make sure that's enough time for you, Dr. Houchin, to do, and the others to do that work, and then know that, like in a dream world, we are kicking this off in the spring, kicking the start of the work off, in the winter or early spring.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me try to be a little bit more specific. It's November 10th. I've already sent Carissa some follow-up emails while we were talking here to get some data. I'd suggest that we in the city have 2 meetings between now and December. Frankly, I will be out on disability leave for the majority of the month of December, but that in January, we, continue to visit these corner stores, nail out the details of the collaboration plan, connect with Dr. Tucker. And the timeline that I had presented at the beginning of the meeting had us starting in February. So that would still keep us on track for that and allow us to bring back to this board just a more detailed plan so you understand what we're talking about with regard to meaningful engagement and the kind of data that we're planning to share, and more specific goals around making sure that our corner stores not just provide healthier food, but are more healthy places. I took that to heart and want to make sure that what I present back to you incorporates some kind of shell for framing that discussion and getting to those goals with that collaborative working group. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you for that, Dr.
Thank
House.
you. I'm glad to know that that's enough space to do all that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, we have nothing else on the agenda, so unless any of our members have any last minute issues or updates, I think we can adjourn.
I do have one comment.
Okay.
Our youngest little staffer is wonderful, and she, in my opinion, is always welcome to show
So
up.
well behaved. I think
She tries really hard.
Oh,
You're doing so good. We're so sorry that we have to take your mama at night.
yeah, staff gets younger and younger around here.
Any other comments? All right. Well, we'll take that bark as our gavel. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good Thanksgiving, everyone.
Thank you.
You too, Kathleen. Thank you.
There'll be lots of